My name is Jens Stefan, and you can recognize me as being a member of the accounting department faculty because I'm not wearing a coat and tie. I'd like to welcome you to our second annual accounting symposium. Today's topic is fraud detection and regulatory enforcement. We have with us an experienced litigator and regulator, as well as someone that's been on the wrong side of white-collar crime. These individuals will share their expertise and experiences with you. All right, to introduce our next speaker, I'm going to start with a story of something that happened about 20 years ago. At that time, there was a carpet cleaning company in California that had reported an $8 million contract to restore a building in San Diego. The auditor, Ernst & Winnie at the time, demanded to see the building. Now remember, when I say auditor, that would mean people just like you. Well, that was a difficult request to comply with for the company because neither the contract nor the building existed. But based on old-fashioned Yankee ingenuity, the senior management team of the company found a construction site and was able to lead the auditors through a tour of an unfinished building and to show that this restoration work was really underway. So that problem was avoided. Except the situation became a little bit more complicated when the auditor later requested to see the finished job. The company had to spend $1 million to lease the same building and hire a bunch of contractors to finish 6 of the 8 floors in the next 10 days so that they could lead the auditor through that building with a completed job. Auditor was led on another tour and wrote a memo saying, "Job looks good." So, how many of you are going to be auditors? Raise your hand. Yeah, we don't have as many as I thought. You think somebody can fool you? Well, we have the answer to that question today. Mark Morze was the mastermind behind the phony documents that fooled the auditors and the regulators. And the following story now comes from an interview he did with Business Credit magazine in 1994. Quote, "An Apple computer, a bottle of whiteout, and a desktop copier. These, according to Mark, are all it takes to fool some of the best educated," that's you, "highly regarded auditors," that's you, "in the accounting business." Morze met the founder of the carpet cleaning business, Barry Minko, in the summer of 1985 when he was doing financial consulting for mom-and-pop businesses. And the 19-year-old Minko needed capital. With his connections to the local banks, Morze easily raised the money that was needed to expand. It wasn't long, however, before he learned the truth about Minko's business. After selling some receivables from restoration jobs in early 1986, Minko admitted to Mark that the jobs did not exist. Quote, "At that point, I could have extricated myself and said, 'Hey, you're breaking the law here.' Instead, for numerous reasons, greed, rationalization, I became a willing co-conspirator." If you were the auditor, what questions would you have asked? Our next speaker, Mark Morze, will tell you what questions you should have asked if you had been there. With that, I'd personally like to thank Mark for sharing his experiences and insights into life with us this afternoon. I have a premonition here that some of the lessons that we're going to learn here are things that you would not be able to learn from the professors in this College of Business. So please help me welcome Mark Morze, the University of Cincinnati.
Well, can everybody hear me? I want to make sure that's great. I should start off by saying that sometimes people ask me, especially when I talk to accountants who are already out there in the real world, a lot of times they're a little bit, they have animus toward me. They don't like me. And that's an understandable thing because every single accountant in America has fewer dollars in his pocket because of me. They pay more money in liability insurance and in malpractice and stuff because of guys like me. So you're all going to be poorer, and you even paid me to come here and talk to you. So if at the end of this somebody wants to come up and kick me in the shins, it's okay. I've had a lot worse done. But the reason you should listen to me can best be explained by an old cliche. One great thing about cliches is they're almost always true. And the simple cliche is this: if you want to build a better hen house, do not ask the hens. Ask the fox. I get paid to lecture at the FBI Academy. And I think it takes a lot of courage for FBI agents to come to me and say, Mark, we got to have you because we don't think the way you do. And you'll never catch a fraudster unless you can put yourself in that guy's brain for a couple of minutes. Now, when I was at ZBest, we claimed to do what are called insurance restorations. A building would be damaged by fire or water, and we would come in and fix it. And at one point, we were doing over $400 million worth of restorations in aggregate. And as so eloquently pointed out, not one of them existed. They only existed on paper. And I created 27,000 documents to convince the big 8 auditing firms, which now is down to about the big 3, maybe, I don't know. I used to brag that the biggest crowd I ever talked to was 7,000 CPAs at one time. Unfortunately, it was at Arthur Andersen. And I guess not all of them listened. But I can't brag about that anymore. And we did a restoration job on a building in Sacramento, California. Here's actually the building we claimed we were restoring. And we had an invoice for the work on that building. And here's that invoice. And you see it's for $7 million, and it's for a job in Sacramento. This particular invoice went through 7 different audits, was audited 7 different times for all of the monies that I raised in the various IPOs and bond placements. And over 106 CPAs had to peruse this and do work on it and certify it. And after I got caught, and not one of them ever suspected that there was fraud. After I turned myself in to the government, I talked to one of the government CPAs. No offense to anyone, but my attitude was that he was probably not the sharpest knife in the whole drawer. And I said to him, I said, there is fraud on that document. And I said, I want you to prove there's fraud, not surmise, not have a good idea, but prove that that document has to be fraudulent. And I said, you can't leave your desk. You can only use the phone. Today, I'd say you can use the internet, too. Well, the first thing he did is he grabbed his calculator, and I said, put that down. And I realized telling an accountant to put your calculator down is, you know, like a big deal. I'm surprised they're not implanted in your hand. But I said, you don't think I made an addition mistake, do you? You know, oh, here it is, you can't add. I go, look. I said, I want you to ask questions about that document and come up with a roadmap to finding fraud. And in less than an hour, he was able to come up with 11 items that proved this document had to be a false document, ergo a fraud. And afterward, I said to him, how was it that you were able to find this when 106 other accountants who are even smarter than you couldn't? And to show that he really wasn't all that sharp, he kind of looked at me and said, yeah, how did I do that? I was here, but I don't remember. And I said, you found fraud because you were looking for it. I could leave right now. That's the whole speech. It's over. Go home. Get your CPE. It's okay. You got to look for it. Now, I talked to the senior partner at Ernst just a few years ago. He said, you know, Mark, you're right. That's one of the last things we look for. I go, liar, you don't even look for it last. You don't think of it. You look at a piece of paper and you think it's real. He was able to find the fraud in a matter of minutes solely because he was looking for it. And before this is over, I'm going to show you exactly how he did it. Now, the other thing I want to say to you is I'm going to try to save a good 10-minute, 15-minute Q&A. I'm also going to continue my question and answer at a local bar if someone here can tell me a good one that's nearby later on for happy hour. Some people think I have a drinking problem. I have a stop drinking problem, but that's not not very important. But so before you leave during the reception, so I need some volunteers to tell me a good club around here that I can go to and have some fun. But I will answer any question you want to ask. You cannot ask a question that will embarrass me or hurt my feelings. I'll answer anything. Do you want to know, what's prison like, Mark? Huh? Do they really rape guys? Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you right off the bat, prison, bad place. Don't go. First thing they do when you go to prison is they issue you a 300-pound roommate, usually named Bubba, and he thinks you're cute as a bug. And your next thought is, how am I going to stay awake for the next 5.5 years? One other thing, if you ever drop the soap in a shower, leave it on the damn floor. You just sort of play soccer with it, but... So if you have any questions at all, go ahead and ask. I also have a luxury. I'm going to say some things today that I hope will make you think Mark has to be lying again, because it'll stretch your credulity. I have a luxury. You can look up every single word I say today on LexisNexis or Westlaw or a million other places and step back and go, my God, it was true. We did $400 million worth of construction work, and yet our auditors never saw one original source document. Not one original document. All they saw were Xerox copies that I created with a bottle of whiteout, an X-Acto knife, a cheap Apple computer with the old green screen and the yellow letters. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about. And you have to ask yourself, I never took an accounting class in my life. I've never taken a business class in my life. And yet I was able to create the documents that fooled the top lawyers, bankers, and accountants on Wall Street. Now you have to say, if a dummy like me could do that, imagine what somebody could do if they really knew what they were doing. And the answer to that is it's called Enron and WorldCom and Tyco and Sendit and Xerox and Quest and Adelphia. And I used to be able to do that on one breath. I can't do it anymore. But so that's where you have to ask yourself. And a lot of times I get some accountants who come up to you and they'll say, you know, Mark, maybe you fooled those pot-smoking L.A. accountants with your shenanigans. But here in Cincinnati, we're made of sterner stuff. And I go, well, that's a bunch of, well, never mind. No, I fooled the guys on Wall Street. Now, my prosecutor, who's actually a real good guy, we became friends. Go figure. Said to me one day, he said, Mark, you must be a genius. And I said, how's that? He goes, you were able to outsmart all of these other guys. And I said, that's not true. Now, to be fair, when you're about to face the judge who's going to sentence you, it's not a good time to brag about what a great criminal you were. But I said it's not true because think about what the word outsmart means. What does that word mean? It means I have more smarts than you in that endeavor. Now, how can I have more smarts than the bankers, the lawyers, and the accountants? That's the triumvirate you need to commit a fraud. You need to have bankers, lawyers, and accountants. And guess who's the most important? Accountants. Because you can get a new bank tomorrow. Get a lawyer. You can get a lawyer in 3 seconds. Sorry. I mean, you throw a fishing wire into a mud puddle and yank, there's a lawyer in there. It's easy to do. But accountants, your work takes time. You know, I can't call up and say, can I have an audit today? No. So of all the people that I had to get to do what I wanted, now I didn't outsmart anybody. Words matter to me. Words really matter to me. And people misuse words. Like, take the word simple and easy. Most of us use them interchangeably. But they have nothing to do with each other. If someone said to me, Mark, how do you handle world hunger? I go, it's simple. Feed people. They go, well, that's not so easy to do. I go, exactly. Whereas also a little boy can make a Lego castle. That isn't simple at all, is it? There's 500 pieces, but it's real easy. Why? Because a 3-year-old boy can do it. So simple and easy don't mean the same thing.